is my greatest defense. It leads me from the dry wilderness, and all I did was praise. All I did was worship, and all I did was bow down, and all I did was stay still. And hallelujah, you have saved me. It's so much better your way. And hallelujah, great defender. It's so much better your way. You know before I do, where my heart can seem to find your truth. Your mercy is a shade I'm living in. You restore my faith and hope again, and all I did was praise, and all I did was worship you, Lord. All I did was bow down, oh, and all I did was stay still. And hallelujah, you have saved me. It's so much better your way. And hallelujah, great defender. It's so much better your way. Hallelujah. And hallelujah, you have saved me. It's so much better your way, Lord. And hallelujah, great defender. It's so much better this way. So much better this way. I know it's so much better your way. I just want to read a passage from Exodus 14, verses 13 through 14. It says here that Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still." I know so many of us are afraid and just so unsure and frustrated with where we are right now. And we're scared for our families, and we're scared for our neighbors, and we're scared for our friends. But the greatest thing we can do is call on the Lord and stand still and stand firm and praise Him for all the good that He's doing, because we know that He's already fighting for us. We don't have to do a single thing except for pray and praise. So I want us to reflect on that and think about what we could do in the silence, in the solitude. Because God's moving, and He's moving big. You can already see it. And it's so great. And so we praise Him right now for that. everything that you've gifted us with. You've gifted us with health, with shelter, with peace with you, and silence. Because for so long we've been focusing on the noise. We've been focusing on the day-to-day busyness, on our classes, our families, our friends, our relationships, the stress. We've been focused on the hardships, the heartbreak. And in the midst of all that noise, we've forgotten your voice. We've forgotten how powerful you are. And we've forgotten what just being still can do. And Lord, in this time I pray that we just feel you move. We find the strength to sit still and feel you. And we get to know you all over again. I pray right now we build a foundation that is so strong that whenever all the craziness builds back up again, we don't lose sight of you. You are the forefront of all the noise. I pray for health. I pray for radical healing. Jehovah Rapha, we need you here. Not only healing in our bodies physically, but we need healing spiritually. And you're so big, and you're so merciful, and you're so incredible that we don't even have to question. We know that you are bigger. You're bigger than the media. You're bigger than the fear and the stress of what might come and what might not happen. So right here, we rest in the peace knowing that you are fighting for us. You're fighting for this nation. You're fighting for the world. And you've already won. You already won. You're so much bigger. You're so much greater. And we thank you, Lord, for this time that we get to be together with you. 'Cause when I thought I lost me, you knew where I left me. You reintroduced me to your love. And you picked up all my pieces, put me back together. You are the defender of my heart. And when I thought I lost me, you knew where I left me. You reintroduced me to your love. And you picked up all my pieces, put me back together. You are the defender of my heart. We thank you, Jesus.
Good evening. I'm Gavin Subler with Truth College Ministries, and I'm the college pastor at University Heights Baptist Church. We just like to welcome you guys to our live stream. Hope you guys are all staying safe and washing your hands. We got a special guest, Gabe Hyman, is going to be doing the sermon for y'all. He's got something special prepared. So welcome to our Ultimate Playlist. All right. God bless you guys. Good night.
Hey everybody, my name is Gabriel Heinman, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm an intern and a small group leader here at Truth. I've been called to be a preacher, and through this church I've had the opportunity to preach to the youth and at a retirement home here in town. And tonight I have the opportunity to preach to you guys. We started this sermon series called The Ultimate Playlist, consisting of some psalms. And I was praying, God, what psalm do you want me to preach over tonight? And I picked up my phone, and my screensaver was Psalm chapter 19, verse 14. And I knew that that was the psalm I had to preach over. Psalm 19 is packed full of so much, and it can become confusing unless you break it down. And when you do, you begin to see that it is the story of who God is. Look at Psalm chapter 19, verse 1 with me. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. They have no speech, they use no words, no sound is heard from them. Yet their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the very ends of the world. It's easy to look at science and go, man and ape look pretty similar, so evolution's probably true. And these other theories sound pretty practical, so they're probably true too, and there is no God. But when you look in the sky and you see the colors of the sunrise and the sunset, the chiseled clouds and the wisp clouds, the infinite amount of stars and galaxies, it's hard not to wonder, what made this? I've always wanted to go out to the desert and sit and watch the sunset and look up in the sky afterwards and see this. And sure, we can entertain any of these theories, like the Big Bang Theory that says these particles that no one knows where they came from just happened to slam into each other at just the right time, at just the right speed, that it created everything in existence by chance. Or it's a lot easier for me to believe that there's a God who put it all in place to function properly. And I'm happy to discuss any of the theories with you, like Stephen Hawking's "the universe created itself because it needed to" theory. Just hit me up. President Abraham Lincoln said, "I can see how a man can look among the earth and be an atheist, but I can't fathom how they can look into the heavens, the stars, and say there is no God." And that's what our psalmist is getting at here. He's saying, no matter a person's language, no matter their culture, their upbringing, you can look into creation and see these signs and understand that there is a God. Romans 1:19 tells us that God placed it all in existence, and that because we can see it, we have no excuse for not believing. As we look into the stars, I think we should see proof of God's presence. Moses, David, Abraham, when these men beheld the stars, it was like a written witness to them, saying, "Your God is near." Every reflection of a star, of the sun, said to these men and other like them, "Your God is near." As our psalmist writes, the heavens are telling the glory of God. They are a marvelous display of his craftsmanship. Day and night they keep on telling about God. Without a sound or word, silent in the skies, their message reaches out to all the world. In his book, The Universe Plan or Accident, Dr. Robert E.D. Clark shares the same conviction that the universe does declare the glory of God and is a marvelous display of his craftsmanship. His scientific conclusions are that the universe, without a doubt, declares the presence, power, and person of God. Look at verse 4 with me. "In the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. It is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. It rises at one end of the heavens and makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived of its warmth." Now, the second half of verse 4 through 6 can become a little confusing unless you understand that the Bible is full of metaphors, and you can see that this is one of them, and there's a deeper meaning behind it. One scholarly way to look at this is, of the created realm, the sun in these verses is the metaphor of the glory of God, as it makes its daily triumphant sweep across the whole extent of the heavens and puts out its heat, its felt presence on every creature. Knowing that there is a God is like the warmth of a fire on a cold night. Knowing not just that there is a God out there, but one who came down to be among us, died and beat death because he wants to spend eternity with us, is comforting. David is saying, because we can see it throughout all creation, knowing that there is a God is like the comforting warmth of the sun. Creation screams out that there is a creator, but you can't see him, so how do you know he's real? My grandfather, when posed with this question, would use this example. One late night when we were returning from Houston, our young son spotted the Goodyear blimp. Now, he couldn't see the blimp itself, but he could see the lighted message on its side that said, "Welcome to Houston, Texas." When I look up in the stars, I can't see God himself, but I can see his lighted message. Your God is present. David, through verses 1 through 6, has exclaimed the glory of the work of God's hands. And now, through verses 7 through 11, he goes on to exclaim the greatness of God's decrees. Look at verse 7. "The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The decrees of the Lord are firm, and all of them are righteous. They are more precious than gold, than much pure gold. They are sweeter than honey from the honeycomb. By them your servant is warned. In keeping them there is great reward. David was a king. And not just any king, but a king of one of the greatest nations at that time. And for him to say that God was more desirable than pure gold, which he had plenty of access to, and sweeter to the taste than honey from the honeycomb, which is really all they had to sweeten beverages and food back then, means that David is saying God is better than the most delicate and most desired after things on earth at that time. But why? What makes God so special? Why is God more desirable than the things of this earth? We all know that everything on this earth comes to an end at some point, whether it be the life of a job, a car, technology, every animal, every plant, all of it, all of us have an expiration date. And that's the difference between the joys of this world and the joy from God, is God is eternal. And David understands that. And that's why he's saying that God is better than everything else because he is never ending. When I first received the call to be God's preacher, I said, no, God, that's not for me. I want the fancy house with the sports car and the trophy wife and the perfect family. I want the American dream, God. And that's not what you're offering. So I ran from him. And eventually, my life began to revolve around these materialistic things. And the further I dove into this world, the more depressed and more like a failure I began to feel. But when I stopped running, I turned around and I saw God standing there waiting on me. And now that I have accepted the call that he's placed on my life, I am more fulfilled than I have ever been. His light has been placed into my eyes. It says it makes wise the simple. Those who could not once understand are able to see God and see him throughout creation. It brings joy to our hearts, comfort to our souls. Following God means following the decrees that he has placed before us. But we're not all perfect, and we won't be until Christ returns. But does that mean we should keep on sinning? No. We are to do our best for God. David is saying that God is the most enjoyable experience we will ever have. But, look at verse 12. But who can discern their own errors? Forgive my hidden faults. Keep your servant also from willful sins. May they not overrule me. Then I will be blameless, innocent of great transgression. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Now wait a minute. David has told us throughout this entire chapter that God is more desirable than anything on this earth. So why would David have to pray, God, show me what's hindering our relationship? Guard me from the things of this world. I mean, if God is so desirable, why would there even be this pull towards the things of this world? Because of sin. Well, what's so bad about sin? It makes me feel good. It's the easier choice. Well, first off, it removes us from the joy we get from God. Okay, well, it hurts us spiritually, but does it do anything else to us? Imagine a boulder. And now this boulder is super clean. It looks like it was just pressure washed. But there's this dirty little drip of water falling from the edge above on it. And eventually this little drip turns into a trickle, and the trickle eventually turns into a stream running over the boulder. Now, we all know what happens to rocks as water runs over them for a prolonged amount of time. They begin to erode and pieces begin to break off, right? Well, now this stream has turned into a raging river, and it's no longer a boulder that stands there, but just some pebbles at the bottom of a river. And that's what sin does to our joy, our happiness, our faith. When you look at sin, even from a non-religious standpoint, it's still bad for us. Take adultery, for example. When you ask some married people who are not religious if adultery will destroy their marriage, they will tell you yes. Look at greed. People are willing to kill, to destroy the lives of others just to gather what they want. People are willing to push everyone else away from them just so they can have this one little thing. And now they're all alone. Sin, whether looked at from a religious standpoint or a non-religious standpoint, is still bad for us. Yeah, it seems good at first, but over time, it slowly destroys us. What David is getting at here is that even though he knows and has experienced the greatness of God, he still has this pull inside to do these sinful acts. Every Christian in the world today deals with this. We know that God is better. We have experienced his greatness, but we still have this pull inside to do the opposite. Ever since Adam and Eve took that first bite, we've been prone to sin. But we can't keep blaming them all the time because we're the ones who continue to choose to do it. I find the most joy in sitting down and having my quiet time with God each day. It's the most restful part of my day. But the other day I woke up and I decided I want to play a game. So I hopped on my Xbox and I played throughout the day. And then my dad came home and we went outside and grilled, and I'll read later, God. And then after dinner, my dad said, hey, you want to play Xbox? I said, yeah, I'll read after that, God. And I just kept saying, just one more, until it was 11 o'clock at night. And I had to be at work at 6 a.m. the next morning. I had wasted my time. If I know that God is the most enjoyable experience of my day, why would I choose the things of this world over him? Playing a video game is not a sin. Neither is spending time with family. But there's this constant pull of choosing God over the things of this world. And that's why David writes verses 12 through 14. He's saying, God, guard me from these sins that I'm prone to commit. Show me my hidden faults that hinder you and I. He says this prayer because Matthew 26, verse 41 tells us, keep watching and praying that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. These verses are our prayer. Not just for someone who's coming to Christ for the first time, but for Christians every day of our lives. Look at verse 14. Verse 14 is one of my favorite verses of all time that I have memorized, because there are two parts to this verse. You could read it all jumbled together and say, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. But if you break it down, you begin to see the deeper meaning behind it. Look at the first half. It says, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord. The first half of this verse is saying, God, make us desire what you desire. Help us take joy in our troubles, to embrace our struggles, as Paul says in Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. God, we know that we should rejoice in our struggles because we know that you are made known through them and that we grow closer to you because of them. God, I had everything going right at college. I had a bunch of friends. I was growing closer to you. I was finally out from underneath my parents' roof. But then this COVID thing happens, and I'm sent back home. I have no friends. I'm back under my parents' rules, or I'm stuck in my apartment all alone. What now, God? What would it look like if we went out into our community with the confidence of Jesus behind us? They would look at us and go, why are you not freaking out? Sure, you're being cautious, you're obeying the rules, but why aren't you freaking out like everyone else? And we could tell them, yeah, I'm a little worried, but I know who's in control. And that starts the conversation about God. In these times of panic, people seek for hope because they realize they don't have any choice over what happens. They don't have any rule over life and death on this earth. And they search for answers. And God has given them to us to share with them. Look at the second half of this verse. It says, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. When we hear my rock and my redeemer, whether it be in this verse here or throughout the whole Bible, it seems to stand out to us. But why? We as college kids, we get lonely, we get anxious, we get shaken by things that happen in our lives. And as a result, we do things or say things that we become ashamed of. And we try to fill this hole inside with everything that this world offers, acceptance, whether it be through alcohol, women, men, relationship status, popularity. And at first we think it worked because it distracted us from our true problems. But eventually we return to that place of depression and loneliness because we realize the things of this world didn't satisfy me. Believe me, I'm speaking from experience here. And that's why my rock and my redeemer stands out to us, is because we wonder, okay, if everything you're telling me is true, if this God really is real, will he be my rock, my firm foundation when the storm slams into my life? Can he redeem me? I've done some pretty jacked up stuff, man. Are you sure I'm not too far gone? And the answer is yes, he will be your firm foundation when that storm slams into your life. Yes, he can and he will redeem you. How do you know? This last year, the day after Thanksgiving, we lost my brother Troy due to a disease called muscular dystrophy. At first, I didn't have the time to deal with it. But as time went on, I came to the place where I could deal with his passing. And at first, all I wanted to do was crawl up in a ball and cry. I didn't want to do anything with anyone. I wanted to avoid the world. But you know what? Because of God, because I had this firm foundation, I'm able to wake up in the morning and go, today's going to be a good day. I did some pretty jacked up stuff in my life. I thought some pretty jacked up things. But because of the grace of God, he looked down on me and said, you're my child. I love you. You are redeemed. I can still find joy in my life because of him. If you're sitting here tonight and you're saying, I need that. I want that. You want a relationship with the God who formed the heavens and the earth, the oceans and the streams, the land that we walk on, the one who formed you in your mother's womb, the God who came down to this earth and said, you're not too far gone. I came down and I died and I beat death because I want a relationship with you. If that's what you want, that's what you need, then my phone number is 936-662-1614. Give me a call. Maybe for those of you who already have a relationship with Jesus, it's a matter of turning back to him and praying this prayer of, God, show me what is hindering yours in my relationship. Father, guard me from the sins that I am prone to commit, because I know that when I choose you, I will be innocent of great transgression. And may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. One more thing, and then we're done for the night. Martin Luther, the great reformer, tells the story of one of his professors that comes into class each day and repeats the same routine. He comes in, he takes off his coat and hangs it up, and then he proceeds to take off his hat and bow before each of the students in the room. One day, Luther had mustered enough courage to ask him, what are you doing? Why do you bow before us? And the professor stopped and looked at him and said, I bow before you in honor of what you might become if you get your life in tune with God. My question tonight is, are we in tune with God? What would it look like if we took these verses and we internalized them and we went out into our communities, in our states, in our country? How would the situation change in this world if the church went out bearing forth the love of Jesus? If you remember anything from tonight, let it be this. There is a God who loves you, who says you're not too far gone, and get your life in tune with him. Because when you do, it will be the greatest experience you will ever have.